Hello, everybody. It's James. Ask Dutch Anything, episode 64. Dutch told me to include more enthusiasm and bullshit.
Oh yeah, that's our calling card.
Yeah, I think so. I think we've done very well. We're going to do the introductions now. This is Ask Dutch Anything, episode 64. So what does Ask Dutch Anything mean if you're new? Well, that means that if you get to... if you see your way fit to email this show, questionsfordutch@gmail.com with your question, the best ones will make it into a future episode to be asked to Dutch himself. Before we get to the questions themselves, we'll do the intro very, very quickly. Dutch has two books, of course, The World According to Dutch and Tales from a Dirt Road. If you want them unsigned, you can go to Amazon and just follow the links in the description. Or if you want them signed, you can email Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com. And also,
absolutely,
and then you can email Dutch himself. He will sort you out a price and delivery and all that kind of thing. And he doesn't just have books, he also has the diplomas as well that is signed by Dutch Mantell and the provost of the University of Dutch, Zeb Colter, and also a few hats knocking about as well. So all of those signed items, you email Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com. I can't remember what else to do for the intros. I didn't write anything down.
That's good enough.
Yeah, that's good enough then. Once again, the email for this show is questionsfordutch@gmail.com, and that is exactly what Brad...
Do you have questions for James? You have that too, right?
What?
Okay, questions for Dutch.
Yep.
But do you have questions for James?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
I thought I read that somewhere.
No, yeah, occasionally people write in and ask me questions. I sort of just ignore them because you know me. I like to be an enigma. I like to be a spectre, a spirit,
you like to be a what? Enigma.
Enigma.
Oh, hey, can you tell them my new word I just came up with?
Was it scamulous?
Scamulous. It's a scam, but with a little more of a little bit of a more of a university flavor to it. A scamulous person.
I was telling Dutch about TV licenses and how they work in this country, and that's where scamulous came from.
Don't ask, because it confused me in the first 30 seconds.
Okay, and already 2 minutes into the show, and my computer just went absolutely nuts there. So anyway, I've restarted Dutch. How about that? Ah, dear.
Well, some days we just can't get it right.
Yeah, your computer didn't work. My camera wouldn't switch just then, which is my issue just then. Ah, dearie me. And it's always when we've got a guest booked the same day.
Oh, yeah, always. It can't do it on a regular day, but we always have a guest booked, and then it falls apart.
As we record this, this is going to be confusing for everyone. Kurt Angle, we're going to be interviewing next, but that will be coming out first. So that'll be coming out on Friday, just gone, and this is coming out on Tuesday. So, wow, wasn't Kurt Angle great?
Oh, he was tremendous. People said, you didn't have him on, you stupid bastard. We say, oh, well, we're pretending he's on, so just pretend with us. We're talking about wrestling anyway, so just pretend a little bit.
Oh, he was the best guest we ever... Anyway, aside from that, we're going to... We're going to do the questions. Once again, questionsfordutch@gmail.com, and so many of you do every single week. First one, this relates to your books, Dutch. Brad says, any chance Dutch would do audiobooks for his 2 books? I'd love to hear Dutch tell these stories.
Well, I've looked into audiobooks before, but then I found out it entails a lot of reading, and but I've looked into it, but I don't know what the market would be for that. You know how long it take to read 2 books? It's like 800 pages. It would take quite a while. And then somebody would have to edit it, and then they'd have to listen to it. Then you may have, where I wanted to stop at, say, page 92. Well, somebody could be asleep from listening to it, not wake up and go ahead to like 165 or whatever. But yeah, I don't know how that's done. I've thought about it, but that's about as far as it's gone. So, but since who sent this question in?
Brad.
But since you brought it up, I'm going to look into it further. Thank you for making the wheels of economy roll in my head. And so I'll see. And if I come up with it, you'll be the first one I'll tell.
I looked into it for my book, well, the Owen Hart book originally, right? So in 2020, there really weren't many audiobooks out on Audible, which also Amazon owns, right? And I thought, well, that'd be the perfect thing to do, because with Audible, you sign up and you get like 1 free credit a month. And then, if somebody spends that credit on your book, then you get the royalties for it as if they purchased it, I believe, anyway. And then I thought, well, I'll do a little run through, and I tried one page, and here's the thing. With Audible and Amazon, you have to get every word right as written, or else it'll lose it. There's like a different thing called like X-ray as well.
So they have they have the copy in front of them, or a machine, and you have to do it as written.
Yeah, no, it's more like AI, where they will follow along with the chapters and stuff like that. Anyway, I couldn't stop making mistakes, like, because I knew the pressure was on, and the pressure's on, you can't make a mistake. And then it took me like 5 minutes to get through a paragraph, and I thought, you know what, it's not worth it, because I'll be here forever.
So how would it stop you? Just stop?
No. There's nothing stopping you. You just have to submit it as written, exactly. And,
okay, say you made a mistake reading a paragraph. When would you know that you made the mistake? Right then?
Yeah, when you read it, you can tell. You can definitely tell. But yeah, I found it really difficult, and I just gave up on the idea in the end.
All right, Brad, since I've heard this, forget it. I'm not dealing with it. If it causes any kind of consternation in my life, because I don't like that, because that makes you age faster. I don't need to age any faster than I've been aging. So I'm going to have to, the audiobooks will probably be on the to look at later shelves. And you know when it's looked at later?
A lot
Never.
later. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot later.
I'll look at it on the 12th. The 12th of never.
Hey, the day that we're doing this is actually a holiday. Did I mention that to you?
Yeah, you said off air. So this is a Puerto Rican thing, yeah?
No, it's a Catholic thing.
Oh, okay. So it's Three Kings Day?
Okay, the story is that I went to Puerto Rico for a January the 6th big show. And that week, it was like on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And I went, wait a minute. Why would they have a big show in the middle of a week? I didn't get it. And I flew all the way to Puerto Rico. And of course, the planes were late and snow. And I got in there. I was supposed to get in there like 3:00 the preceding afternoon. I got there at 3:00 in the morning, because it was like snowing, and it was like 20 degrees in Nashville, where I left from. So I got down there, and somebody finally told me today is a holiday. And I went, what? It's like Christmas again. It's like the second Christmas is what it is. And Three Kings Day is, when it's a Catholic holiday. I don't know exactly what it means, but it was something to do with the baby Jesus and all this. And I didn't even know that. I flew all the way to Puerto Rico, not knowing why I flew there. Are you looking it up? The Three Kings Day?
I was trying to look up the alternative lyrics to "We Three Kings of Orient are, one came on a bus, one came in a car."
Well, I don't know.
No, that was it. "We Three Kings of Orient are, one came on a bike and one in a car, one in his scooter, honking his hooter, following yonder star." There you go.
Well, anyway, it's a big day. It's a second Christmas. So, let me say this about Puerto Rico. They know how to party, buddy. Their Christmas season starts like December the 1st, and it ends like January the 8th, 7th or 8th. They need the 7th to sober up and the 8th to get over the hangover, and they might go back to work on the 9th. But it lasts about 5 weeks, and they have nothing but party time. For
5 weeks?
Well, not really, but that's basically what it is. It's not official, but nothing happens at Christmas. Nobody really, it's Christmas time, and they have a really good time, drink, party, visit with friends and relatives, and it lasts about a month, which I love that. I do. If I had known when the cutoff point was January the 6th, and that was kind of the day you ease back and you got to go back to work. And, they need that January the 6th day because they're depressed because they have to go back to work. They don't want that. But anyway, I had a good time down there on January the 6th, even if I didn't know what it was. So,
You just knew that the drink was flowing, and that's all that mattered.
well, walking around the airport in the middle of a week and everybody's half hammered. And you're saying, what the hell is going on? And I was thinking to myself, what the hell is going on? I didn't find out what January the 6th was till about a day later. And somebody told me, said, hey, this is January the 6th. It's Three Kings Day. I said, what? It's Three Kings Day. And he explained it to me. I said, okay, I wish somebody had explained it to me before, because I'm walking around here not knowing what the hell's going on.
Next question, Ronnie from Cookeville, Tennessee. With all the driving you had to do in the territory days, how often did you have to buy a vehicle? Would you usually purchase a new car or try and find a low mileage vehicle, knowing that you'd soon wear out either one? I understand some territories like Bill Watts, the travel was horrible, but others like Knoxville, you'd be home that night. I've always wondered how the boys survived with all the driving demands and the sometimes low payoffs. So how many cars did you get through, and where would you get them from?
Oh, I've probably gone through 30 cars. Of course, back in the day, you would do 100,000 miles on your car after a year and a half was nothing. I mean, you try not to drive your car no more than normal, but you would have to. And I've known some guys, they would buy these 10-year-old cars and they were like mechanically minded anyway, and they do their own work on them. And they would put them out there and do the miles. So if they put miles on them, it didn't matter because that's what they had bought it to do. But if you buy a new car, I mean, you're gonna, and if you drive in some of these places like, say Louisiana, 100, I say 100,000 miles. That's 2,000 miles per week almost. Sometimes in Louisiana, you're putting on almost 3,000 miles a week if you drove that car every day. And the cars are not going to. I knew some guys who used to change their oil every 2 weeks because they would have all this mileage on it, and it was just brutal. Sometimes you would leave at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and get back at 3 o'clock in the morning. So you're gone, I don't know, almost 20 hours or whatever that adds up to. You was gone. But most guys, they got in a little group of 3 or 4 of them, and they would alternate driving cars. And yeah, it was brutal. And sometimes the payoffs did not match the trip. And that's when guys, they're riding along and saying, bullshit, I'm not doing this no more. And they would start making the calls, and they would call around and get another place to go, and they'd leave. Because the turnover rate in territories like Louisiana, say Florida, Memphis, it was very high because guys just didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. But of course, I was there when the territory was pretty good. The money was pretty good. So I could get through it. But yeah, some of those places were brutal. I mean, brutal, brutal. When you go from the middle of Louisiana all the way up to Oklahoma, almost to Kansas, that's quite a trip, buddy. Quite a trip. And a lot of guys didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. And I will say in the Mid-South territory, the Bill Watts territory of Oklahoma and part of Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, yeah, I made it 8 months. I couldn't make it anymore. I said, nope, it's done. I'm gone.
What did you find to be the most reliable vehicles or makes of vehicles?
Well, they were all pretty reliable then. They were built differently. Cars are made now. At 3 years, they're ready to go. But a lot of guys didn't buy new cars because they knew that as soon as they bought it, the resale value drops $1,000, $2,000 when you drive it off the lot. So they would get used cars with low mileage and run them till the wheels drop off. That was probably the prevailing mood.
What were some of the most usual cars that wrestlers would go for then? I mean, apart,
we didn't
like Lincoln Town cars or anything, like runarounds that you didn't mind breaking.
Well, Lincoln Town cars, that was an expensive car, still is, but you didn't see that, for road cars. I mean, you've seen guys out there with that car, but it wasn't used regularly. So they would just get a regular car that was used to mile, just a Ford or a Chevy or something, and just run it.
What was the worst car you ever had?
I had a 39 Ford Coupe one time. I wish I had that car today. You know how much that car would be worth?
Mm.
Probably 100 grand. But I had it, and this was years ago when I knew nothing about cars. I didn't know about working on them and taking care of them or anything. But I didn't use that in wrestling. I only had it for about a year. Then I got rid of it. But it was just the regular cars, the Fords or Chevys, no trucks, no trucks at all. Well, you probably had trucks, but not for the road wear. But it was just the the regular models that it was offered to the general public, and you would buy one and you'd run it.
Because you mentioned Louisiana before, did you ever get to a point where you like couldn't park a car near the arena if you were a heel, lest they find out which car you were on, burst all the tires and smash all the windows?
Well, not really. Well, I never had that type of heat on me anyway. I did in Puerto Rico, but I didn't drive my own car. But I have heard of guys parking around the corner, or a lot of buildings had the underground parking where you can go underneath the building and where it was pretty safe. But a lot of times when you park close to that building and they knew what car you were in, you'd come out and your windows would be gone, your headlights would be gone, your tires will be flat, whatever. But yeah, fans, and that was just due because of security. They wouldn't pull enough security on your car to protect it. And after a lot of bitching, they finally, changed that where you could park somewhere and they would put a guard on it. But Lawler one time, did I tell you this story when he came out and the guy had the rock right in front of his car? I think I've told you this.
Yeah. I think you told it recently, in fact. Yeah.
Well, that's what they do. They'd mess with you, and I mean, if you didn't have any guards or policemen around there, they could do what they wanted to do because there were too many of them. So,
next question. Dino writes in and says, I was wondering if you could ask Dutch about his time in main event championship wrestling. It ran out of Nashville in late 1999 to early 2000. Dutch worked there as a commentator with Les Thatcher. I believe Reno Riggins and Stephen Dunn were, if not the promoters, then the driving force behind the promotion. It's hard to find out any details about this promotion, so any details? I've never heard of this place before.
It didn't run long. I think it ran for I know one TV taping. It may have ran for two, and that lends new meaning to how do you become a millionaire in the wrestling business. You start with 2 million because they didn't really have I think they just wanted wrestling on TV, but didn't sell any ads and didn't run any shows. And I don't know how they expected to make money, and they didn't give it enough times. And it started up, and about a month later, it never officially closed. I think it died on its own symptoms. All of a sudden, it just wasn't there anymore. But it was it was a tough go. They did okay at the TV tapings. They do a decent audience, and but me and Les were out there. We're trying to lend our expertise in whatever was going on. Of course, your announcers are to kind of refresh the story in the viewers' minds. And I don't think the ratings were that bad, to tell you the truth. I think they were pretty good. But TV back then, the promoters had to pay for their own TV, not only to produce it, but to show it, because they were thinking like this was a paid advertisement,
like an infomercial. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were paying for the whole hour, and they were getting no money from it. And no business can survive like that. No wrestling business can, at least.
Who else was involved with this then? Do you remember any of the wrestlers or the promoter?
Well, I was there, and let me see.
I mean,
I remember, but it's like 30 some odd years ago. So, and Reno Riggins, and who's the other guy? He'd say
Stephen Dunn.
Stephen Dunn. He's passed away now. But yeah, they were like the two main ones that were kind of put it together. But And I think Reno was the one doing the financing. And I can't believe that Reno would spend his own money to put a to put a TV product out there. If truth be known, I think probably Reno found him a sponsor, and they ran it as long as they could, which is a month before the sponsor said, I think I'm gonna bail out of this, and he bailed out, and then it was gone. And was I notified officially? No, it just all of a sudden it just wasn't there anymore. So everybody knew that if they didn't call you or didn't say anything about it, it was done.
Have we ever talked about Les Thatcher on this show?
Have we ever talked about him?
Yeah.
We mentioned his name.
Yeah, give us a story about Les Thatcher then. I don't know too much about him. I believe he's a rather well. Wasn't he in Smoky Mountain Wrestling with you? In fact, at one point.
Yeah, he was. He was the announcer.
Yeah.
He was one of them. Les is a good guy. I think Les now. I read something about Les the other day. I don't know how old he is. I think he's in his 90s, but I think he still talks well. He still, how he remembers probably more than I do. But a story about him, he was in the Charlotte territory, mid-Atlantic territory, and they had a guy there named Johnny Valentine who just beat the living crap out of him. He's like an older version of Gunther. You know how Gunther just beat the hell out of people? Well, that's the way Johnny Valentine would do. And they had him booked against Valentine coming up. And when they would book you like 1 week or 2 week runs. He saw that and he quit. He finished up. And somebody asked him, why did he finish up? Was it the money? He said, no, I just couldn't take that ass whipping for 2 weeks. He said, I just can't do it. And he left because he was always good with his money. And so he could probably economically afford to take some time off. And he did. And just sitting down with Les is like sitting down with a dictionary, a wrestling dictionary. He knew a lot. And he was talking about people even I didn't know about either years ago, because he went back to the 40s.
He's 84, by the way, not quite in his 90s. Okay. He debuted in 1960.
And he was a good talent, never really a big guy. But I remember him when I first started watching wrestling, and I was watching we called it Charlotte, but we were watching the Mid-Atlantic TV show, and he was on there. And to me, they always treated him well and with respect, and he did well. He stayed around there for quite some time. And then when Johnny Valentine got hot in the mid-'80s,
70s,
I mean, I think it was later than that.
Well, no, the Johnny Valentine. No, the plane crash was in 75. And he retired after that, didn't he?
Well, maybe I have the dates wrong. But Johnny Valentine was over.
Next question. Mo says, hello, Dutch and James. Happy 2025. Happy New Year, Dutch. You haven't even said that yet, for goodness sake. Ric Flair came out recently saying he wants one more match. And I think maybe the ugly jungle robe he spent all the money on, he wants more. Maybe Ric Flair could face Eric Bischoff or Vince Russo or Jim Herd at WrestleMania. But yeah, Ric Flair has come out once again saying he feels great and he wants one more match.
Okay, if you look at that the way it's written, every word has a capital letter. Every word.
Ah.
Did you notice that?
I didn't notice that.
But see, when he comes out with something that he wants some feedback on, that's the way it's written. And I think, how about you told me you think Rick does this himself?
Yeah, I think he does the tweeting himself. I think it takes him half an hour though. Shift.
No, I think he's got some guy who does it for him.
Just as illiterate as him.
I guess, because I don't know what kind of feedback he got on this, but I noticed, I went, wait a minute, this has Flair's fingerprints all over it. But if he thinks he has one more match, he'll still draw a half-decent crowd anyway. I think the last one he had was the one in Nashville, and I think it seats about, 6,500 or something like that. The old Nashville Auditorium downtown, it seats about 6,500 people. And of course, he had Undertaker there and a lot of other people, wrestlers there, just to see his last match. That was the match we thought he was going to legitimately dying because because he was in there with Jeff and Jay
Lethal.
his Jay Lethal. He was in there with them, and they were doing the match. But when Rick got in there, I swear to God, he couldn't hardly walk. It was actually embarrassing. But you can't embarrass Flair any more than he's been embarrassed. So I think he's putting it out there to see what kind of feedback he has and see if they can maybe go one more time. And if there's still some decent money in it for him. So, but
do you think the memory? Do you think the memory is distant enough that you think, well,
no.
He had drop foot or whatever, and yeah, he may have had just a slight heart attack during the match, but you know what? There's been another 2 years intervening.
Oh yeah, I feel a hell of a lot better now.
Yeah,
and
another 2 years solid drinking. That'll do it.
Yeah, and I'm going to try it one more damn time, damn it, and see if I can make a few bucks. Now he did well the last time. They give it enough time. And I'm wondering if he wants to do another match, would Conrad Thompson be involved in this?
That's a good question. I'd have to ask. My guess would be no.
Yeah, I don't think he'd be involved in it either. But if he has one more match in him, I'd hate to see it because I think that his last one kind of was a coup de grace. I think it finished him off.
I want to think of the mindset of somebody who would look at that match and think, do you know what? I've got one more left in me.
Yeah, I want to see another one. I want to see it one more time. But I do think he has a closet secret. I think he actually wants to die in the ring. I think that's how he wants it to wrap up. I guess. I don't know.
He wants to do the old Mickey Rourke thing in The Wrestler.
Did you see that movie?
Yeah, I watched it. Someone gave me a hooky DVD of it, a dodgy copy.
But okay, how do you know that Mickey Rourke died at the end?
It is implied he does the splash off the top and then it goes to black. And doesn't he have doesn't he have a pacemaker or a heart condition or something like that? Just like
something like that. And I hated that movie. I hated. There was no high spots in it. It was just gloomy all the way through it. But anyway, regardless of that, Rick, just be careful what you wish for. You may get it.
So, apparently Flair also said that there's no way this match could be in AEW because once Tony Khan found out that Flair was on blood thinners, he said absolutely not. I mean, the pacemaker wasn't a big... Or the last match. I saw the last match. He looked terrible in it. But, yeah.
He's on blood thinners. What does that do?
Thins your blood.
Keeps it from clotting?
Yes. He'll be on statins or something, I guess.
And I didn't even know that. I do now. Yeah. But, if I was, put yourself in the place of a promoter and you have a talent that has health problems and all of a sudden you know that he's got a pacemaker and he's on blood thinners, would you book him in a match? No. If you knew that and they came back and sued you, you would lose because you booked it knowing that he was hurt. And so he died, not because of his stupidity, but of yours. So you could probably lose several $1 million.
Here's a question for our legal representative. What's his name?
Oh, yeah. Adam Burbrower, my good friend.
Okay, so if you know that Ric Flair is on statins or blood thinners and he's had a heart attack the last time he attempted to wrestle and he's clearly, he's nearly an octogenarian and he's obviously an alcoholic of some description, I guess, and also he's had litany of other health issues. If someone, let's say he can't get insured, or the building, somehow he gets a building and insurance isn't a problem somehow, I don't know. But the wrestler who he faces, or he participates in the wrestling match with, or wrestlers, if they all know that he's at death's door, and what if someone just gives him a chop and it stops his heart? Would they be culpable if they knew that his health was bad?
They would be. Because the law works in funny ways anyway. Yeah, you could make a charge. I don't know if you would get a conviction. I don't know. This is a jury trial anyway, I would assume. But if you knew the guy was in bad shape, and especially with his heart, and you give him a hard chop, and all of a sudden he went, dropped over, you'd go, oh my God. Then you'd be down there going, ooh, come on, Rick, come on. And then kissing him, trying to get some air in him or something, and pushing. And then they announce, ladies and gentlemen, The time limit has expired. Hey, that's not funny. That is not funny at all. So, but yeah, I don't think he'll get another match. I don't think. I think the brushback from the fans would be enough to make him stop it.
I don't think he cares about brushback of the fans. I just think he thinks there's one more
The
grift.
promoter will.
There's one more
The
grift
promoter
in
will.
this that you might be able to get 6 figures out of.
Did you call it a grift? Is that what you called it?
Yeah, that'd be such a good after that last match. Because I mean,
Did you see it?
yes, from beginning to end, I did. Yeah.
The whole pay-per-view.
No. Sorry, the full match.
Just the
I
match.
watched,
The
yeah.
match.
Yeah. He turned up with a t-shirt, like a vest on, and it was too long. He looked like he was wearing a dress throughout. And then, like 2 minutes in, he was like he was moving in custard. He was so slow.
Moving in what?
Like custard, molasses.
Oh,
for
it's
goodness
some,
sake.
yeah. Okay, I got it.
But it's
Yeah,
like you throw a chopper and some sort of non-Newtonian fluid. There you go for the science geeks out there. Right. One more thing Ric Flair said I want to give your opinion, get your opinion on. Ric Flair also
Did you
said
say anything about me?
no, he probably will, though, after this comes out. He said that he no longer gives young wrestlers advice because they don't take it and would rather listen to inexperienced people or the internet. When you were still in the business, when you were in WWE with Zeb Colter or TNA, or we're talking the last 15 years, did you find that young wrestlers were asking your opinion less?
Not really. I mean, but if I talked to them and I was trying to help them, if they didn't seem interested, then I would stop. You're on your own. If they would have to come to me. I wouldn't go to them because I wasn't an agent. And I would sometimes, if they would ask me, I would give them the answer as I understood it should be. But if they didn't want to listen, nah, I'm not wasting my time.
You say, go talk to Flair.
Yeah, I mean, they would rather maybe. Well, I was much older than they were anyway. I can see that. They would, if they asked anybody, they would ask maybe one of the agents that's much younger, and that's okay. I got that. But usually when I would tell somebody something, I could tell them something and they would say, what does he know? Well, he's been in the damn business, since damn Adam and Eve. They would say that. And then, but when you know that a talent is not listening and is not going to follow it, why would anybody even continue to give them, advice? Because I would say, okay, I'm out of here. I'm done. Good luck. And see what he'd do on it by himself or with the help of somebody else.
I know I told you this joke before, but if Ric Flair does wrestle again, instead of a last man standing, it should be first man standing. Just
our first man up.
Yeah.
So, both of them could go down. Ladies and gentlemen, the count of 10, the first man up wins.
And lay them down. Yeah, lay them down about, and then 60-minute time limit draw. Ric Flair could go Broadway one more time.
You are too much. I'm going to tell you, Rick's going to hear this. He's going to get mad at you.
Oh, who cares? Mark from Darwin, Lancashire, writes in and says, "Hi, Dutch and James. I know you've talked about Roy Ferris, Honky Tonk Man, in the past, but not sure if the blow has ever been discussed. I was watching an old interview with Honky Tonk Man. He mentions all wrestlers he teamed up with, and he brought up your good self, Dutch. And you and he were tag team champions in Puerto Rico for a year. As someone who only really knows Roy as Honky, did it seem like an odd team up? Just interested to hear your thoughts on Honky. Was he Roy Wayne Ferris still at the time? Was he Wayne Ferris at the time?
He was Danny Ferris. No, he was Danny Condrey. Because I was originally going down there with Dennis Condrey, and Dennis couldn't go for some reason, and we were looking for a replacement. And I had been talking to Wayne, and I asked him. I said, "You want to go and take?" Danny's place or whoever place he was taking, Condrey's place. And he said, yeah. So I substituted him, and they just changed his name, like to make everybody think that, it was still a Condrey. He was Danny Condrey when he went down there. And it was an odd pairing, a cowboy and somebody with a gimmick like Wayne had.
What was his gimmick at the time then when he went down?
He had the blonde hair. Oh yeah, the blonde. He was the same as he was before, and I was down there with the bullwhip and cowboy. But what was a cowboy doing with a character like that? We did okay. We used to go to Trinidad. You know where Trinidad is?
Yeah.
Trinidad is off the coast of South America. I think off the coast of Venezuela, basically, somewhere in there. And I have never been in a hotter place in my life. You could go out and sit by the pool. You wouldn't sit there long, not in the sun, because it would be like 100 degrees, but the sun was so intense. And I asked somebody, I said, why is it so hot here? They said, well, you're almost right on top of the equator. I didn't know that. Well, I knew it then. But brother, you get in some of those dressing rooms down there, they didn't have air conditioning and it was hot. And you go out to the ring, even at nighttime. You know, they had a lot of nighttime shows. And you would go out there and I mean, you would break a sweat right as soon as you walked out the dressing room door. So, and a lot of crazy people down in Trinidad. It was, I mean, they would throw bottles and they would throw rocks and they would throw everything else. So when you went to the ring, you went in defense mode, and you're wrestling, and this is when you're locking up with a guy, you're looking like this, and you're looking like that, and seeing who was getting ready to throw something, because it would just fill the ring up. One night I just left the ring. We were supposed to go like 12 minutes. I said, F it. I left after 6 because here come the stuff. I call it like the Caribbean air parade or something. Here it come through the flying. I left after 6 minutes. And the next day my opponent asked me, why did you leave? I said, well, I didn't want to get hit in the head with something and knocked out. I said, were they throwing anything at you? He said, no. I said, exactly. So that's why I left. And nobody ever said anything. I wasn't going to stand there and them just use me as target practice. Screw that. So I left.
What did Honky make of it all? Because I don't think he ever went back.
No, he never went back. No, it was too rough. It was too rough. I mean, Puerto Rico had, it was just a rough crowd. If you didn't have the proper security there, they just took that, and guys used to come in, little kids, and they would sell rocks for a nickel. They would come in there with a box of rocks. And how much? Oh, a nickel. Oh, give me 10. And give the kid 50 cents, and you got 10 rocks to throw. I mean, that was their game that night, not to actually see the wrestling, but see if they could hit a wrestler. Oh man, and you'd have bottles flying. You know, when you take a Coke cup and drink the Coke out, and you just got ice in it, and you pack it down, that's quite a thing to throw. And if you get hit in the head with it, it could knock you out. So very, 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 very dangerous to go out there. When we would do the stadium shows, the fans would get on top of the dugout and wait for us to come out. So the worst thing you could do is walk out and give them like almost a stationary target. As soon as they hit that, well, we didn't have music then, but as soon as I would let the opponents get in the ring, then all of a sudden it's time for us to go, and I'd wait and I'd wait and I'd wait, and they were all up like getting ready to throw. And if I had a partner like Wayne, I'd tell him to go one way and I'd go the other way. So if we were together, you know, they could aim at the mass and just hit one of us. And so we would run out, and I would meet him at second base. It'd be a baseball stadium. I'd meet him at second base. One time I actually slid into the base and he got up and went, safe. And oh, they didn't like that with the crowd. So, and then we went in and did the match. I have never been a babyface making a comeback on me. And I was actually getting beat up and looked like I was backing him up, because I put his back to the crowd and he was hitting me and I'm going forward, and I got to the dugout. So if they threw something, they were going to hit him, or maybe it would hit him instead of me. I didn't tell him that though, but I made it back safely. But it was really a dangerous thing. Now, when I first went to Puerto Rico, they put the main event on 4th, which I thought was the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. So one day I asked Carlos, I said, Carlos, why do you put the main event on 4th? And he says, well, they drink like fish. So we want to get the main event over and done with and out of the way before they have a chance to really get hammered. Which then when I found out about that, I thought he was the smartest son of a bitch in the world. That's the greatest thing I've ever heard. So one night we did in the stadium show, in a arena show, we went on last. My God, they were hammered to the gills. And we had to actually have 6 or 8 cops take us to the ring. And they were punching, they were drunk at this time. They were punching through the cops. And so we got in the ring, and it was like a razors around the ring, but they never got it up because all of a sudden they had an athletic commission come out for some reason, say, oh, you can't do that. It's too dangerous. So we had it without the razor wire, and we finished the match. We got beat, but still the people tried to kill us on the way back. And shows in Puerto Rico run long anyway. It was 12:30 by the time we got back to the dressing room. Guess what time we left?
Go on.
About 2:45. Because they kept waiting and kept waiting and kept waiting. Finally, a cop come in. He said, guys, hey, I'm on overtime right now. I can't wait anymore. I got to go home. So he left about 2 o'clock. And when we went out, they were still there waiting on us. I thought to myself, don't you people have to go home or do something? Why are you waiting for us? And here come the rocks, and here come this. Not a lot, because there wasn't that many there. But they waited on us for like, I don't know, almost 3 hours. And I said, stupid bastards. But we got out of there. Now, if we'd have got out of there, and then if we'd have had some flat tires, that would have been the end of it. They would have gotten us.
No wonder Honky never went back. We've got a couple more, then we'll shut down the show.
Okay.
Billy from Chattanooga, Tennessee says, hi, James and Dutch. Do either of you know details of the ring announcer Ronnie P. Goss? I'm assuming it's Ronnie P. Gossett, allegedly
Ronnie
selling
P.
stock that did not belong to him in Goulas's wrestling to some of the fans in Chattanooga. Thanks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great story. Ronnie P. Gossett was the announcer, and he was a huge wrestling fan. Actually, he eventually got into wrestling, and he was a manager, and he was a big, I hate to say this, but he was a big, obese fella, big guy, not tall, but he was just round.
Rotund.
And he's probably rotund. That's a good word. And I used to cuss him like a dog, because he would cuss me too, but he was doing it at just kidding around. After a while, I got a little pissed at him, but what he did, he found out that, and he announced all the Chattanooga shows. Finally, some people got to talking to him about, how do you get in this wrestling game? How do you get in this wrestling business? Well, I got some stock. I got some stock I'd like to get rid of. And he sold them stock in the company, and I forgot how much. And I think he sold it to like 4 or 5. He sold it to doctors and lawyers. Imagine selling it to a lawyer. Wouldn't a lawyer know what a legitimate stock holding certificate should look like, or however you do that? But they finally found out that, say they give him like $10,000 or $20,000, whatever. That was a long, long time ago. Well, they finally found out that it was bogus, and finally brought him up on charges. And I don't know what he ended up with. I think he went to jail for a while, but it was just bogus stocks that he was selling. And what got me was he sold it to actual lawyers and some doctors too. So to anybody that would believe him, I mean, just hearing his voice, you said, this guy's full of bullshit. He's full of crap from yay to stop. And yep, they continued to buy it, or bought it for, I don't know, for a 6-month period.
Oh, dear. Next one. AMC writes in, says, hey, Dutch and James, should Rick Martel and Ronnie Garvin be in the WWE Hall of Fame? By the way, Ronnie is better than his brother. Which one, Terry or Jimmy? I don't know.
Terry.
Okay, then. So let's take Rick Martel first. I think he's a slam dunk for the WWE Hall of Fame. Did you ever meet him? Because you were in the WWF briefly with him.
I met him. Yeah, I think he's got a hard on for him now, really. You know what that means? He don't want to have not. I don't think he wants to have much to do with them now.
Yeah, he doesn't do any. He doesn't do interviews. I think he wants to be absolutely divorced from pro wrestling at large. I know he's got like an official social media presence, but I think he's absolutely done with wrestling these days.
Well, we hadn't heard anything from him for 40 years, so I guess he is. But would he fit? Yeah, he would probably fit. I guess. I mean, and Ronnie Garvin definitely needs to be in there. How old is Ronnie now?
He's got to be in the 70s, easy.
No, he's older than that.
You waiting for me to look it up? Ron Garvin, 1945, so he'll be 80 in March.
Yep. So, but he's a shoe-in, really, but I don't know now because so much time has gone by. But I think that, yeah, Ronnie Garvin was a great worker, not a great talker, but a great worker. And he would go out there and he was like a smaller Johnny Valentine we were talking about earlier. He would beat the crap out of you too. So, but I always liked him, good guy. So would he fit in the Hall of Fame? Absolutely.
You know, just because we were talking about Ric Martel before, when did you meet him? Was it WWF or was he doing territories beforehand?
Where did I meet him? That's a good story. Hell, I can't even remember, but I do remember, I think having a match with him, I think somewhere.
Really?
I don't know. I mean, I've been hit on the head a couple 100,000 times, so I have no idea. But if I did have a match with him, it was only like once or twice. I don't know where I would be.
Okay, then, so I'm going to search through his match listings while I ask this final question from Coach J. I would love to see if Dutch has any memories of the lead-up and conclusion of the hair match between Austin Idol and Jerry Lawler. It was in a steel cage where if Idol lost, he was going to refund the admission of every paying fan in attendance in excess of $50,000. It was such a great angle, in my opinion, and had fans really heated. Without ruining the story, I would love to hear Dutch talk about this angle, how it came about, and was executed so flawlessly as well.
Well, I remember the match and when they had it. I wasn't there. But when I'm reading about some of the conditions of it, wait a minute, he would refund the ticket price of anything over $50,000. Wait a minute.
I think up to the value of $50,000. Look, Jerry Lawler was going to win anyway, so it didn't matter. He could promise a million.
So, but yeah, Austin Idol had quite a reputation in Memphis. He would get some of those houses up and they would do well. And no matter what the payoff was, apparently it never was quite enough because he would call him up. He said, you still owe me some more money. No, this is not, I can't accept this. And they'd give him more money. And sometimes they would really advertise him. And sometimes he would just get a hair up his butt and he just wouldn't come. So, and they kept booking him. I said, wait a minute. How many times does he have to burn you before you think, well, I don't need to book him anymore? But he did draw a lot of money. Him and Lawler drew a lot of money there. They really did. But again, that goes back to my old advice. They told a good story. And I think Idol was a little bit different when hey, I tell you, I was doing. And he was over with the people and they drew a lot of money. But anyway, I don't know how many times he was there, but every time he was there, and sometimes he would leave in the middle of an angle to really piss them off. And he would make them come up with some reason why he didn't appear. He was in a car wreck. He was in this, he was in that, or whatever. But then they would bring him back one time. And I remember one time he got his money before he went to the ring. And that's saying if a guy wanted to try to hold me up like that, I'd just quit booking him. I'd find somebody like him or as close as I could maybe and just substitute him and he'd be a lot cheaper. One time Austin Idol was in Columbus, Georgia. And Columbus in those days in the Georgia territory, they had one promoter called Fred Ward, and he promoted Columbus and Macon and the towns right around there. So they had a battle royal, and Austin Idol, you know the story.
Yeah. Oh, I think we said it on the show. This one.
Well, I'll tell it again.
Why not?
He won the battle royal, and it was written out to Austin Idol in a check, $5,000. He spent the night in Columbus, got up the next morning, got in his car, ready to go home. But before he went home, he went to a local bank and he cashed the check for $5,000 and went back home and ended up going back to Tampa where he lived. So he cost them.
Why was he just so unreliable, though? I don't understand why people would just turn up and then not like fulfill their commitments. Was it just like purely creative that they didn't want to take a loss at the end, or did he just get paid enough to pay his bills for a while and go home? I don't understand it with Austin Idol.
Well, $5,000 back in those days.
It was a year's wage almost, that wasn't it?
Oh, well, it wasn't a year's wage, but it would be like $20,000 today. So he would cash the check because it was legitimately written out on Farmers Trust, whatever, and it was signed by Fred Ward, and it had his name on there, even though his name wasn't Austin Idol. You know, they showed the check to the crowd. Here's the check. Of course, they had to put Austin Idol on there. He smartened people up, you know. And he went down to the bank and he cashed it. And I guess it was legit enough for him to get the $5,000, and he took off. Because the only way they could fight that is to go on TV or go down to take a warrant and tell them no, that it was staged. And they couldn't do that, so he got off with $5,000.
We're going to shut down the podcast there, but just before I do, I just quickly looked it up. You and Ric Martel were both in Florida together in 1975. I've even got an event here where Ric Martel defeats Bob Griffin by DQ, and then in the main event, Frank Hester and Pat Barrett defeat Dutch Mantell and John Foley by DQ as well.
What the hell? Yeah, okay. I remember I was with him somewhere. I just cannot remember. But does it say any match of me and Martel?
I could probably search through it and figure it out, but I'll tell you what, when I'm doing this goodbye, which is going to be, hang on, let me just, Dutch Martel and John Foley versus Pat Barrett and Ric Martel, and you're in a battle royal with them as well, best we can tell, but you might have been in more, but who knows. I do apologise cutting you off, Dutch. We need to get going because Kurt Angle is going to be on any second. Thank you everybody for joining us. We'll catch you again for Storytime with Dutch Mantell on Friday. Questions for dutch@gmail.com if you want your question answered or, submitted at least for a future episode of Ask Dutch Anything. All that is left to say is Dutch, we the people. See you on Friday.
We the people. See you then.